He's lying on his bed. His room comes into view from the perspective he would see it if he opened his eyes. He can see kind of like the back end of his room. And when his room comes into view with his eyes closed, there's this giant humanoid praying mantis being in the corner of his room, kind of hovering slightly off the ground, staring at him, but in the corner of his room. And he freaks out. He opens his eyes. It's not there. He closes his eyes again. His room fades into view. The mantis comes back. And he repeats this a few times. And then he told this part of the story. I said to him, "You are braver than me. I would not do this." He kept his eyes closed and just kind of observed it. And it started to float towards him, started drifting towards him. It got above him, like over the bed, this mantis being. A mandible grew out of it, and it had like a point on the end of this mandible. And this guy, man, like honestly, I do not think he's making this up, because he was just telling me on the phone, like, dude, I had this crazy experience. And he said this mandible grew out of it. It had this like point on the end of it, and the mandible went into the back of his head. But then he said the moment that happened, he felt this incredible sense of all the stress and all the worry and all the like concerns in his life just melting away, like he was being deflated of all of his stresses. And this is something that ties into the UFO phenomena, because there's so many accounts of mantis beings, and it seems to be in some way almost tied to like a interdimensional surgeon of some form that can do some form of energy work on you. And so when he told me this experience, I was like, mate, there are people that have claimed to have that experience in abduction scenarios as well. And it just made me think of you having the experience in the room as well. There may be layers of dimensionality that are right in front of our face, and we just can't see it most of the time, you know?
Well, I like the way you describe that situation, and I am completely on the same page as you in terms of we should not dismiss hypnagogic, hypnopompic states, psychedelic states, any kind of altered state of consciousness. Often under physicalism, we dismiss those and say those are just dismissible as strange actions of the brain because of neurons firing, because of various things. So first of all, I'm not a physicalist, so I'm open to different perspectives. But along the same lines as your friend, my friend Stuart Davis of Aliens and Artists fame actually had an experience of encountering the mantis being when he was on an extremely high fever. He was sick with a really, really high fever. I think actually one time he had a negative reaction to something, got into a fever state, and then experienced the mantis being, and had a very, very meaningful interaction. Felt very real. It wasn't insubstantial. It wasn't, all over the place. It was a very consistent, realistic kind of experience. And I've had people say to me, "Oh, come on, that's just an hallucination. He was on a fever state." Again, I think we should be careful not to explain those away. We should use those as opportunities to explore our understanding of reality in ways that may be incomplete, if not woefully misguided.
Well, this is the thing, because we don't really understand what hallucinations means anyway. We don't have a solid basis for what consciousness is. And so I always get a little bit frustrated at this dismissal of things. Oh, it's probably just a hallucination of the mind. So, well, what is that anyway? What is a hallucination of the mind? What is a projection? I mean, my own experiences, no one was around to witness them, these orange orbs of light. And I have to wonder to myself, perhaps that was some form of a psychic projection. Maybe it was. But even if that's the case, what does that mean? What, there's something enters my reality subjectively to me. I'm experiencing it as something external entering my reality, and it has a profound impact on, how I live my life, how maybe it changes your perception of what things are. And so, it's kind of like that whole Morpheus thing of, what is real? How do you define real? Like, seriously, like, what is real?
And when we think about there being this base reality, we assume that we as a species are perceiving this base reality. And then when we have things like hallucinations, that's something else, something not as real. But we don't really know what this thing we're experiencing generally is. And anything we measure in terms of trying to validate a physicalist perspective is using our perceptions, where again, we don't know if those perceptions are not part of some sort of mental construct of some, projection of mind at large or something else. There's so many questions, and really there's just really lazy assumptions that are made that really limit the possibilities.